What's up, everybody? It's your favorite show, Get a Bucket. I'm your host, Trey, and as usual, I hope you're all having a wonderful, wonderful day. Today, we're going to talk about the 2025 McDonald's All-American Men High School Basketball game, because this is going to be a wonderful one. It's coming up very soon. Matter of fact, April 1st is when it will actually take place, and it will be at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. This will be the first time that the McDonald's All-American game has been played at the Barclays Center. And it'll be at 9:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is the top talent from high school battling one another. Think about the NBA All-Star game, but they actually playing some defense. And I'm basing that specifically on last year's too, because last year's was very good. So I hope that this year's rivals last year's. But let's talk about the top teams in terms of who has signed the most McDonald's All-Americans. Currently, we got Duke, my boys, you know what I'm saying? And UConn leading the helm with 3 McDonald's All-American signees. So that's a good one. Be looking out for them. As well as Arkansas and Houston, they at number 2 with 2. And then finally, we got teams like UNC, Kansas, BYU, Washington, Baylor, and Arizona with 1. And then to round it off, we got 3 players that are currently undecided. And one of those players is a top 5 player in Nate Ahmed. So, that is a wonderful time. We'll see what happens. Look out for these teams, ladies and gentlemen, for college basketball, because they could be boasting to NBA talent. Let's move on down, though, to my top 5 focal points, because, ladies and gentlemen, these guys right here could very well be one and done. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, we need to pay attention to these boys right now, because this could be a treat. I'm telling y'all, because y'all could be seeing a couple of them in the NBA All-Star game at a later point in time. But let's talk about, and let's start it off with my number 5 player. We're going to bring it off with Elijah Arenas, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to USC. This is Gilbert Arenas' son. You might have peeped the name, right? And here's the crazy thing. Kind of reminds me of Gil. I'm not going to lie to y'all. It does give me some Gil vibes. The apple don't fall too far from the tree. Now, he is a skilled scorer, but you do got to wonder, is that because of his comp too? I have seen him go up against some players his size, but typically the players are a little shorter than him. So that is something you got to worry about. But remember, we did say the same thing about players like Harrison Barnes. And Harrison Barnes was number 1 back in the day. So again, Elijah Arenas is a skilled scorer. Good athlete. I'm not going to say a freak of nature athlete. He's a good athlete. My question marks are around his defense, though. Like, how much defensive effort will he get? Because, again, high school is tough to gauge defensive effort. Although sometimes it's not. You see those players give that effort. But with him, because he has to do so much offensively, I do understand him not giving the defensive effort I would want to see all the time. So I'm curious what his defensive effort is going to look like in college and in the NBA, because I expect him to go to the NBA. But definitely defense I'm focusing on. And then as well as, and I mentioned this earlier a little bit, at least I alluded to it a little bit, what will he play? Shooting guard, point guard, or a combo guard? I personally think his best position is going to be combo, because I don't know if he's the skilled shooter the way he might need to be. And then decision-making, I have question marks about to be a pure point guard. So I'm looking at him as a combo guard. So for me, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot more basketball to be played. Players adapt, players change, players grow. Again, he's young, but still, I'm expecting Buddy to go to the league pretty soon. But again, pay attention to Elijah Arenas. I think he's a treat, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all enjoy him. But let's go to my next player, which is Nate Ahmed. Now, he's undecided, like I said earlier. And this is the question, and I put a question mark around his team, right? Because I don't know exactly where he's going. If he wants to go to somewhere like a George Mason, I'm cool, because that's my alma mater, right? I hear you. If he wants to go to an Arkansas, I hear you, because I did see John Calipari at one of his games. He kind of reminds me, and gives me some vibes of a Scal at BCA, which, keep in mind, Scal didn't pan out the way he was supposed to, but he was a highly touted prospect that did end up going to the NBA. And for me, I read, Nate Ahmed is like an MPJ. I don't see MPJ, ladies and gentlemen. I truly don't. I think MPJ has more athleticism. I think Nate Ahmed might display more effort defensively. But I do think one thing that Nate Ahmed has to do a little bit more so than an MPJ, and this is more so on the scale of BCS side, is he needs to mature physically. Like, he needs to strengthen up. Because I do get a lot of players. Like, I was even thinking someone like a Lamar Odom, but now I got to see the playmaking as well too. But again, if he strengthens up, that'll be great. And then also tightens up his handles too, because I see him wanting to play on the perimeter, a little loosey with the basketball. And then I want to see how he deals with those stocky players. Because at 6'10", you're probably going to play up against, like Derek Queen, for example, out of Maryland. Derek would be a rookie, or at least a sophomore, when Nate enters the league. I'm curious how he would battle him, because Derek's a little stockier and he's mobile. That would be a good battle. So seeing Nate adjust to those, I'm curious about those. But overall, I'm very tricky. It's very tricky to say where he's going to ultimately land as a player. Again, more basketball to display, more to watch. Players adapt, players adjust, players change. That's my take on him right now. So I'm definitely curious how he responds in the All-American game. Or in the All-American game, because that might help me out a little bit. But let's move on from him, and let's talk about my next player, which is Darren Peterson, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to Kansas, and this brother could be special. He gives me Marcus Smart and Baron Davis vibes. And I kind of got to merge the two, because on the decision-making factor, I don't think he's at the BD realm, right, Baron Davis. He might be closer to Marcus Smart. But from the scoring perspective, he could be closer to Baron Davis than he is Marcus Smart. And I think both players gave good effort defensively, although I don't know if Marcus Peterson or Darren Peterson would be a decoy like Marcus Smart was. So he's somewhere in that mix. But I see a comp somewhere there, which for me, that's a good player. And I see the hunger. Like, he has that wanted factor in the game of basketball. I've seen him go up against top quality talent and actually win. He's a good two-way player. I want to say elite. And for me, it boils down to, well, what's the decision-making versus shooting? Because at 6'5", we're going back to that shooting guard, point guard, combo guard, which he's listed as a point guard. Could he be a combo, or at least better served as a combo? Could be the case. But I like Darren Peterson personally. So I'm going to be focusing on him in the All-American game, because we could be talking about him as the MVP. My next player that I want to talk about is Cameron Boozer. Now, he's going to my boys, Duke, you know what I'm saying? And keep in mind, this is Carlos Boozer's son. So, he does come from good stock outside of just going to Duke, right? But he also reminds me of a Paolo Banchero and a Jalen Johnson. Like, he's a little bit powerful, right? So you get the Paolo Banchero aspect, but he's mobile. Even though Paolo's mobile, I think Jalen's a little bit more mobile. And that's what I think Cameron is. I think he might be a little bit more mobile than Paolo. He's a good to elite athlete. I say that again. A good to elite athlete. About 6'9", 6'10". He's a versatile player. He could legitimately play the 3 through 5. I know for a fact in college. In NBA, maybe 3 through 4. Small ball lineup 5. But then again, the game is getting a little taller. I wouldn't want to see Cameron going up against Wemby, right? But versatile player. And when you look at his high school career, and this will be another discussion for another day, but we have to talk about it in terms of the history of basketball. So again, Cameron Boozer, ladies and gentlemen, this is a player that could potentially be the number 1 pick next year. I know a couple people slept on him. He'll be in a solid situation. I think he can make a name for himself and a case for himself at going number 1. Worst case, though, definitely top 5. I'd even say worst case, top 3. But that's just me, though. That's just me. Maybe I'm biased. Again, I'm a Duke fan. These are my boys, right? But that's enough about Cameron Boozer. Let's move on down to the top, to my top player, in AJ Devonta. Now, he's going to BYU, and this guy is kind of tricky to compare, because I'm not going to lie to you, he does give me T-Mac vibes. When I say he's an elite freak of nature athlete, ladies and gentlemen, that's him. A couple things I do want to note is I do want to see him tighten up his handles, right? Like, Ace Bailey, AJ looks like an upgraded version of Ace Bailey. But sometimes that means that shot making as well, or that shot taking as well, is a little questionable. He can get away with it because of his elite athleticism. I'm questioning, will that shot translate to the NBA? He does have a little hitch, and it does seem to be a little slow, even though he does have a high release point. I'm questioning how his game would translate to the NBA, because if it translates the exact same, we're talking about a star in the making. Talking about someone who could be a potential face of the NBA, ladies and gentlemen. So with this amount of potential and attention, folks are going to be paying attention to AJ. So I'm going to be curious how he plays in this McDonald's All-American game, because I've listed off a bunch of players who have good potential, but this man does stand out. I will say that, ladies and gentlemen. And I know last year Cooper Flagg stood out but didn't stand out, but we knew who he was. So it's not going to be the end all be all, at least for me. So it's not going to be the end all be all if he does not perform to an elite level status. Because I know who he is. And especially if he's trying to let the game come to him, okay, cool. Once he gets to BYU, you got to put eyes on him. But you have to see how he plays against these boys too, because he does play with a level of aggression, and he wants it as well too. So I don't expect him to shy away from competition. So again, ladies and gentlemen, these are my top 5 focal points for the McDonald's All-Americans men high school game. But if I miss somebody, I definitely want y'all to let me know. So please make sure you like, subscribe, comment, tell anyone who's anyone about the show. My name is Trey. I'm the host of Get a Bucket. Hope you all are having a good one.